there are three ways to obey an order, right? There's the resist. You get an order, you resist, which is tantamount to disobedience. So
Yeah.
that's number one, resistance. There's will comply, right? Will comply, in my opinion, is hey, the boss said we need to do this. I think he's full of crap, but he
Yeah.
said to do it, so
We
let's
gotta do
just
it
do it.
anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's Wilco. That again, not a way to obey an order. And then the last and only way to obey an order is to commit. When that order comes to you, you commit as if you are giving that order. That I got told this a long time ago. I'd love to take credit for it. I can't, but I that's the way I said, you know what? Commit, man, and take the order. And I remember I had a really crappy boss at NTC after Paul Garcia, and I did not see eye to eye with that, but he didn't do illegal, immoral, and ethical stuff.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Open Discussion Podcast. I have a special guest, Command Sergeant retired Terenas. He keep telling me to call him Mario, but in my book, once you're a CSM, you're a CSM. So I want to apologize for that before we start here. I really appreciate you, CSM, for taking the time really to hang around the airborne guy. So I expressed to you earlier. Yeah, I'm not a fan of hunting first. You guys give me something. I don't know why. But I got you. But I appreciate you though. I really appreciate you. 32 years of military service, outstanding. I mean, 32 long years. That is amazing. We're going to discuss that. You serve in different position. Key level position up all the way up to what the nominated position. You serve the CSM over at the National Training Center, and of course the 8th Army NCU Academy. So short story, right? I was in Korea, part of a rotation, about a full sail over Camp Casey. I think you would have come down for the NCU Academy. Now, yeah, one time, Command Sergeant your Payton was up there as well. So I went up there and I saw you briefly. So I appreciate we did up there. I also serve as the Command Sergeant Major for Operation Test Command, Command Sergeant Major for Cadet Command, man. And that's as far as serve as a CSM for 10th Mountain Division. Work as a Deputy Director for AUSA and currently serve working AUSA, doing some great things over there in terms of advocating for the Army in conjunction with what AUSA is doing, USA. I mean, but I really appreciate you taking time to come and hang out with me. I really appreciate you. So how you been doing?
Pretty good. It's been kind of a good. Yeah, I'm coming up on my third year of transition,
Ready.
and it just goes by so fast. Finally, real quick, when I was getting out, they said every sergeant major that transitions out serves 3 to 5 years. I mean, 3 to 5 jobs when they get out, right? And I said, nah, that's not me. Job. I'm not. I'm not. I'm not. Happens. I'm on my fourth job.
Same here. I'm on my third now. So it goes
Yeah.
pretty fast because
Yeah.
I know we're gonna go into more details about it. The perception here for us in terms of being the CS in the matter of the nominated level of the battalion brigade, but just seeing a non-commissioned officer,
Yeah.
uh, there's always a problem for us, really, because
Yeah.
you, as a CSM, you're a nominated CSM, you've done so much. Trying to figure out exactly, okay, which route do I want to take? What exactly I want to do? It can become
Yeah.
problematic because you've done a lot and stuff like that. So, again, I really appreciate you. Thanks again for taking your time to come on the show. 32 years of military career. I want to start from the beginning, if you don't mind. Just to ask you here, what was the contributing factor in terms of your decision to overall serve?
So it's I was so I have a crazy childhood, whatever. I came to the States when I was 16. I'm originally Portuguese.
Nice.
I was American. Father was Portuguese. Uh, and by the age of 16 in Texas, my mother, for the lack of better words, abandoned me, and so I I
So from the beginning, what motivated me to serve. So I came to the States when I was 16, abandoned by my mother. Shortly after that, really, I was on my own, and I'm now 20. I've went from Texas to Arkansas to Florida. I got a GED. I went to college, got about 15 credit hours. I'm good. And I see this commercial on TV. By the way, the Kuwait was invaded by Iraq. It's 1990, and there's commercial. There's this helicopter that flies, and a guy rappels down the helicopter. He's got camouflage on his face, and he points at the camera. He says, "United States Army Airborne Ranger, be all that you can be." And I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
like,
He's talking to me.
"That's it. I'm in, man. I'm in." No kidding. I went to the recruiter, and a month later, I'm in basic going, stupid. What did I do, man? I honestly went because I said, there's going to be a war. We're going to go to war with Iraq, and I want to be part of it. Well, by the time the war started while I started basic in December 1990, really January 1990, now 1991. And by the time I finished basic, the war was over. And he said,
Over with.
"You're going to Korea, pal." And I ended up in Korea in all sorts of DMZ and all kinds of stuff. Um, but I think I always wanted to be a soldier, and that's really what motivated me. And then with my background of abandonment and family, the army ended up being the family that I honestly never really had. So all of a sudden, I'm home, and I honestly, a lot of folks say, I was only coming in for 4 years or whatever. I never looked back. I said, that's it. So, there was a little period in the middle before I met my wife that I was sort of thinking maybe I'll get out and go see the world. But then, and honestly, the last thing I have to say is after 9/11, there was unequivocally no inkling of me ever getting out. That was it. They did that on my watch, and now I'm gonna take part in
It's time
getting
for
it
him to
back.
it's time for him to
Yes.
pay it back, right?
Yeah.
That is so what's amazing about the military, right? All 6 branches is everybody who you meet, we have a different story in terms of why we decide to serve. Sometimes folks don't really understand. For me, when I came in, I had intention to do 3 years. I wanted to guys, I'm gonna go test the thing out, do
Yeah.
three
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
And after the first 6 months, stationed at Fort Sill, I got hooked. I was like, yep, I think I can do this for long. It's just because of the people I had around me. I was very fortunate to have some good squad leaders, section chiefs that took care of me. So it seems like you PCS so many times before you even joined the army, you already were rehearsed because you live all
Yeah.
over the place. In terms of PCS, it was pretty good for you. As you transition through, basic training, deployment, and redeployed, was it what you expected it to be, right? Because now you're progressing through the ranks, you go in different places, different assignment. What was it for you for a young soldier trying to navigate the military? How would you describe it for you?
For me, it was there was nothing difficult. I hear the soldiers about moving and all this other stuff. For me, like you said, I think I'd had so much weird transition prior to joining the military that when it came time to move, it's funny because you become a division sergeant major, you're really into reception and integration and sponsorship and all this other stuff. And that's the problem. Is I looked back, I was trying to look back. It's like, how did Terenas navigate this stuff? And I'll be honest with you, I don't remember. It just happened. So my first duty station was Korea. And back then in the 1990s, you arrived in Korea and everything was very regimented. You went to the turtle farm, which we called it the turtle farm. Do you know the term the turtle farm?
I've heard about it, yeah.
Because there was two buildings. One was the in processing, and they were very close to each other, but it took a year to go from one to the other. So
Back and forth.
yes, so they called it the turtle farm because it took us so
Move so
long
slow, yeah.
to get from one for the year. Because no one wanted to be in Korea back then. It was like, let's get it over.
Yeah,
It's
boy.
very different. But it was and then leaving Korea, I went to Fort Polk, and again, it was all regiment. I didn't every. I think I always had, like you, great leaders to take care of me to where it didn't become a problem. And I think that was one of my discussions later on as a senior military guy was saying, hey, we've lost a little bit of that mother, father in the ranks that grabbed you and said, all right, let me take care of you. We lost a little bit of that. Some of it procedural, whatever, some of it because we took it out of the hands of the NCOs, but we could go on a discussion forever on that one.
Yeah, so it is a different atmosphere, right? Being over in regiment and being in I call it general population, right? Not
Yeah,
to use
yeah,
a bad term.
no,
It is different because the upbringing. I've not been in a regiment. I have some friends who
yeah.
was there, but just the atmosphere is different. How will you describe that? And then as far as being in regiment all these years and then transitions to seeing our commissioned officer into the regular army now, how was that for you? How did you navigate that as well?
The funny thing is, the majority of my career was not spent in that. I
Oh,
was
okay.
I was a line guy the majority of the time. You know, I went from South Korea first duty station to Fort Polk in
Of
a
all
unit that
places.
doesn't exist anymore. It's called 4-6 Infantry. When I arrived there, they were sort of still fresh from the Panama deal. They were the
Mm.
regiment that went to Panama and fought. And these individuals were, again, they would grab you. You know, I remember having a first sergeant, and here's the insane part of this too, by the way. So you joined in what year?
98.
98. So by then they were gone. When I joined, the majority of sergeant first classes and above were Vietnam vets.
Ooh, could put
I
hands on
know.
you back in the days, taking the back of the Connex and have a one-on-one conversation, right?
Yeah. So I'll give you a quick story just to give you the mentality of leadership back then. So I'm at Fort Polk, and I have this Sergeant Major Bear, which the guy had a second ID combat patch from Korea.
Second ID from Korea.
Yeah, from like the 70s when they were still giving combat patches. And I mean, he was crazy, dude. And I'm a young private. He calls me up, he looks at me, and he says, "Hey, go to your first sergeant and tell him you're stupid." And I'm like,
What did
okay.
I do?
But I don't you don't question. You're like, "Yes, sir." So I ran to the first sergeant, who's a Vietnam vet. And I said, "First sergeant, Sergeant Major told me to come to you and tell you I'm stupid." And he goes, "Why did he tell you that?" He said, I have no rank on my helmet." And he goes, "Yeah, you don't have any rank on your helmet because you're a private. You have no rank." I go, he grabs me, he says, "Let's go talk to Sergeant Major." So he takes me to Sergeant Major and he tells the Sergeant Major, "Sergeant Major, he has no rank on his helmet because he's a private. He doesn't have rank to show on his helmet." Because back then everything had to be right. And
Yeah.
you know what the Sergeant Major, this is those guys. He looks at the first sergeant straight in the face and says, "Well, then promote the MFer." But that was the Army back
That's what
then.
the back.
They knew you, but then you became a known quantity. That was the difference, I think. And not to say that today's army's, bad, worse than. No, there's none of that. I think actually today's army is way more smart, qualified than we were. I give the example back in the day. I looked at a rifle, and when I pointed my rifle down range, I had a little stick in the front and a little circle in the back, and that's how I aimed and pointed my rifle.
Yeah.
The kids today are
Aside.
Bluetooth to imagery that's on their nods. They're freaking talking through digital comms. Like
Yeah.
I would have broke down in tears as a young private if I had to do that, and I would have peed myself. That's it. I'm out.
Yeah. You got to
You know what I
maintain
mean?
just the basics, right? You have to maintain the basics.
But
But
the leadership component of what we had back then
yeah.
and that tough love and caring we had from our NCOs was a lot different. You know, from the time you were a sergeant, those sergeants got you. You know, E5s, E6s had. I barely saw my platoon sergeant. He was he was like I didn't go talk to my platoon sergeant. And there's a complete different dynamic now. A
But
big
why you think that the change though, right? Because the army, if you think about it, the army, I believe, change
yeah
every decade, every 10 years or
yeah
so,
yeah
or every
yeah
20 years. It's just how things work. And now, become a huge component of today. The army we have today is way advanced. The soldiers today are
yeah.
very very intelligent. Not saying the guys and girls back then was not intelligent. It just things have changed. We have changed. We're very technological, very technology driven, but the basis has to be there. You
Yeah.
know, we got analog and over whatever. So how would you describe it? You coming up on those conditions compared to now?
I think what has changed between then and now is exactly what you said. From 1990 to about 2000, 2004, we grew up. You had it still. We grew up in an analog
Yeah,
world. where the platoon sergeant
Yeah.
brought it was straight up Rado Ranger School. Platoon sergeant sit down, talk to squad leaders talk to team leaders talk to soldiers. But it was a face to face
Face to
component,
face.
which then being leadership is about being present, not just being there, but being present by face to face and inspiring women and men to do things that are impossible. We then now go to, the platoon sergeant says, hey, put the whole platoon on a group chat and let me
Yeah.
just throw it out
Text
because
them.
we want everybody, we shared understanding and shared vision across the platoon. Well, that subverses leadership at that sergeant and he staff sergeant because the platoon sergeant, not purposely, but he's removing that component. Back then, when my specialist, the corporal, came and told me do X, he had or she had every amount of authority in their bones. Now, well, I didn't get a text in the platoon sergeant. You sure that's what I want to do, man? I mean, should I call him? Let me text him back.
Yeah. Completely
Selfie.
different. Completely different army these days, right? But I think we are just changed with the time. I think
Yeah.
just my
Yeah.
opinion, because I transitioned 3 years
Yeah.
ago, and I do believe the army is heading in the right direction because of
Oh yeah.
just the operation environment is constantly changing. You have to adapt. You
Yeah.
cannot
You
become
do.
stagnant. You're gonna lose the fight in all different domains. You talked about leadership earlier. Just want to explore that if you don't mind, because it's something we both love to talk about. Who were some of the folks in your career coming up that had an impact on you as a leader, and from your standpoint, from being a young non-commissioned officer up to a nominated CSM,
Yeah.
how were you able to change those leadership styles as you progressed through the ranks?
So I think the most impactful individual in my military career, I don't know where he's at. I couldn't tell you where he was, but he was my platoon sergeant. When I became a sergeant, a young sergeant, was a guy named Sergeant First Class Anderson. And he was steady. And he was the guy that came up and probably gave me my first leadership lesson as a non-commissioned officer that said, hey, you don't have to yell at people to get them to do what you want them to do. And I think all of us have heard that. So and he took the time to invest. I think he was also the kind of guy that saw talent in individuals and grabs you and says, here's what we're going to do. So I think he was really good. I had a Lieutenant Colonel Lynch also as a young sergeant. And Lieutenant Colonel Lynch was the kind of guy that just would remember everybody's name,
Man,
but I think he also paid attention. So I remember one day walking and saluted the colonel, and he comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, how's your wife Kelly? And your dog, dude, your dog." He goes, "Max, right? How's the dog doing?" I'm like, "Whoa,"
that's amazing. That's
because
leadership right there.
he would pay attention, and that taught me a big lesson to get to know everything about your soldiers. So that was huge. Another one that is probably like he's the one that took me from being he saw me as a staff sergeant major at the 10th Mountain Infantry Division, as a battalion sergeant major. He was my 8th Army Command Sergeant Major when I was a commandant at the NCO Academy in Korea. And he always told me, and he saw me go into the nominative, and then he saw me become the Division Sergeant Major at the 10th Mountain, which he was the division. Even when I didn't believe in myself, he didn't. And that's Rick Merritt, Sergeant Major Rick Merritt,
I know
a
Sergeant Merritt.
legend. Everybody knows Rick. I don't know that there's nobody that
That's a
knows Rick
very Yeah. I met him for the first time when I was in Korea. Yeah,
Merritt. Yeah, you were
good
there
man.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
good man.
We
He
were
don't take
there
no
all
crap.
at the same time. I
Yeah,
had a super serious incident within the first month of being a commandant. I had a soldier, unfortunately, die on me at the land nav force. And for you, when that happens, you
it's
lose
a
a
lot.
soldier in combat. That's combat. It's expected. You lose a soldier in training in a land
Training.
nav force. That hurts, and you start second guessing. And the way he was there for me and helped me handle that was probably something that you would never forget. Just been steady, and I think he's also the guy that helped me. You know, I'll be the first one to tell you. As a first sergeant, I was out of control. I was a crazy first sergeant, and we
That's
all
that's
were.
that. That's every first sergeant tell you for sure, because you believe you are the center of the universe, not you, me.
Right.
This is my organization, my
Yeah,
troop,
that's
company,
it.
battery. I'm the
Yeah,
guy or girl, So, and I
that's
do
right.
believe it just me, because I do believe that's the most powerful
It is.
non-commissioned officer position, because that's the first time you can stand from the formation. You see a
Yeah.
falling to a sign
Yeah,
receive report.
that's right. That's
It's
it.
it's
Absolutely.
amazing. It's
But he
amazing.
helped me make that transition to a battalion sergeant major, and then really had a huge influence in saying, hey, here's the nominative world, and here's what you deal with GOs, how you function at a general officer level. Because at that level, so when you're a platoon sergeant, obviously you're way senior to that lieutenant, even though they are above you in rank, but you're senior. At the company level, you're still senior. At the battalion level, you're still senior, but you're approaching a little bit. By the time you get to brigade, there's a mutual respect. By the time you get to the geo level, you're absolutely side by side. You both have a tremendous amount of time and experience. You both have dealt with it. So helping me navigate to that. So I think long answer to the question, Rick Merritt, most definitely Staff Sergeant Anderson was a huge impact on me. And then a lieutenant colonel. So Paul Garcia was my commander when I was Tarantula 40 at NTC with the airborne team. Paul Garcia was the guy that grabbed me one day and said, this is not a freaking competition. You don't have to be better than everybody else.
Just can't help it. I'm a
Yeah,
paratrooper. That's just how it
I
works.
know. But it hurt hearing him. But it is a lesson that I grabbed.
Yeah.
He said, be a team player. And then
Yes.
he made me read the book about General Marshall and how he was the ultimate team player.
Yes.
And after I got done with that book, I was like, okay, you're an idiot. And it all stemmed from doing a run. There's a run from Fort Irwin to Barstow. It's
Boston.
like, yeah, you do this run. It's like 40-mile run, but you do
Mm.
like everybody runs 2 or 3 miles. You have a team of
Gotcha.
10 folks, and we do it. And I was like yelling at people from my team because they're not in the van, not going fast enough. And then I jumped, and I'm like, told the colonel, like, you're not doing that well. I'm just gonna take your team. And then
He
that's
said,
when he
slow
grabbed me and
down,
said,
brother. Slow down. It's a team effort.
he goes, hey, dude, stop. It's not but that was these there's like these little moments. And one more guy, and I was actually talking about that today. Sergeant Major Grippy, Frank Grippy. So Grippy was the 101st Sergeant Major, and I was platoon sergeant and first sergeant while he was there. And Grippy during PT was the only, like, you couldn't do PT without him being there,
Been there.
right? Like he was always there. He just, like, every day in the division, I don't remember a single day of doing PT in division without seeing Grippy. I modeled that as a division sergeant major, that no matter what, I was out. And funny story, with Grinston came to visit me, and we went and did PT. And everywhere we'd go, soldiers come out and go, Mom, tough sergeant major, climb to glory. And they barely noticed Grinston, which I was a
SMA.
little, yeah, I was mortified. It's like,
So
but
that's
at
in
the
this
end of
right.
it, Grinston told me, he's like, everybody in this division knows you. And I was like, well, isn't that what's supposed to happen? And he did say, actually, it doesn't happen. He was giving me a compliment. And in Grinston giving you a compliment, you sort of wonder,
Yeah.
is he giving me a compliment or not? I'm not quite sure, because just his tone. But he gave me a compliment. He said, you're doing, and I would love to take credit for that, but it was really Grippy that gave me and said, be out there, maybe be present. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it
That's
was good.
amazing though. You cover two major discussion point where I was trying to talk about. One is that mentorship piece, to where
Yeah,
somebody saw you and invested into you. Like Simon Mary, they saw you invested in you, but also the leadership
yeah,
piece of it as well. Meaning, you have to be present. Because for understand now, the army is to some extent very decentralized. You may have folks all over the place. You may not have the opportunity to have everybody at one place at the same time, but you have to find time to see face folks, to have the discussion, because how can I assess you actively if I'm not seeing you? I have no idea what's going on. So you have to make those time
yeah.
to make sure you can spend time with your formation. I want to segue into another area here, because you being as far as 32 year military service, you also
Mhm.
have your daughter also served, right?
Yeah, yeah,
That's a
she's
huge.
in.
That's a
Yeah,
huge.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah,
how was that conversation? Because for me, when I went enlisted, my mom, I just went after I signed the
yeah,
documentation.
yeah.
I told my mom, I said, "Hey, mom, I'm gonna be out here in 2 weeks." So, how
Yeah.
was that? Did she came to you? But the most important thing here, I mean, how did she decide that she
Yeah.
wanted to serve?
So this is crazy, and almost one of those stories that are sort of you can't make up. Sort of like, yeah, you're BSing me. So when I was a operations sergeant major, there was a guy named General Michael. He Colonel Michaels at the time became General Michaels, and he was another great guy. Love him to death. He was the First Brigade commander at the 10th Mountain. He came and grabbed me and said, "I want you to go to West Point and be a speaker for the for like they wanted to talk to combat folks, veterans. This is 2010, so they're giving lessons to cadets. So I went there and I'd never been to West Point. It was my first time, and I'm like, holy cow, this is like this place is
Something
amazing.
special, yeah. Camp
So
Natural
then,
Grace.
absolutely. So the next weekend, while I was there, I said, "Hey, Kelly, my wife," I said, "next weekend, let's come over here and just spend some time and spend the weekend here and show you this awesome place." There was a little bit of an ulterior motive too. There's
Yeah.
Portuguese restaurants there, so
Okay, you had a
yeah,
plan,
so
right?
it's all about the food. So we went there. Never forget this. You've been to West Point. I'm on the parade field right next to the library. You got Patton with his binos facing the
Amazing. It's
parade
an amazing
field.
feel.
Amazing field. My daughter's 10 years old. She's walking around and she looks around and she says, "I want to go to school here.
Wow.
I like this place." And we were like, "Yeah, little girl, that's great. Have dreams." It never stopped. It never
Man,
stopped. So there wasn't even the conversation. The only conversation to be had with her, honestly, she went to junior ROTC. And it was
mm,
funny. So this is terrible. I'm a terrible guy. I preface with that. She comes to me and she goes, "Hey, Dad, I'm gonna go into junior ROTC," and I'm like, "What are you doing that for? That's where all the geek kids go to, right?" I became cadet command sergeant major in charge
no,
of
this
all
for
ROTC
the
programs.
TC. Yeah.
But I have to plug in the junior ROTC because she joined junior ROTC from the very inception. I mean, she was all in. She went to three different high schools. She went
Jeez.
to high school in South Korea, high school in Texas, and finished her high school at Fort Knox on post. The only when I'll go back to the junior ROTC thing. The only conversation that was had is she was accepted to University of Kentucky ROTC program. She got a scholarship for ROTC, which I had to completely devoid myself of to not have appearances. This
Yeah,
is all her scores. She was like just single-mindedly focused.
man.
And the only conversation she had, Texas A&M, she was accepted to, so all these schools. The conversation to be had is when she got the nomination for West Point, she asked me, "Where should I go?" And I have to say this with a heavy, heavy heart. I said, "Go to West Point. Go to West Point because one, unparalleled. It's an Ivy League school.
Yeah.
I'm the cadet command sergeant major at the time.
That's gotta be painful, right? Because now you're
It
sending,
was,
your client to another
yeah,
institution because you don't get that command, West Point,
yeah. But
whatever.
but I'm like, I've been talking mad crap about West
Crap.
Point the whole time because I own ROTC.
Exactly. Yeah.
They graduate 800 to 900 folks a year. We graduate 7,000.
Thousand.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're. But anyway, the reason I was going to plug in junior ROTC, I remember sitting in front of a bunch of junior ROTC instructors, and I told them the story about my daughter coming to me and saying she's going to junior ROTC and what I said, and they all looked at me like, "What?" But I end with this, and this is why I want to talk about it. If it wasn't for junior ROTC, my daughter probably, I don't know if she would be at West Point. Those retired junior ROTC, retired soldiers, NCOs, officers that take over these junior ROTC, I think in a way sometimes, and it's painful to say, we're more of a father to my daughter because I was
Yeah.
gone. I'm a nominative. I'm never home.
Yeah.
I'm traveling 24/7. And they instilled in her that love of country and love of leadership that I would love to tell you that I'm the guy. I mean, I'm making up for it now because I'm constantly giving her advice on leadership. But they were the one. They made a huge, unbelievable impact. And God punished me for saying that crap to my daughter because all of a sudden I'm going to own all junior ROTs.
That is amazing, right? Because I really had an exposure to the JRTC program when I worked as an IRTC instructor.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah,
because
yeah.
for some reason, yeah, there's a preconceived notion out there that, you know, when you think of the JRTC in the high school, it's like those bad kids, the kids who's not doing well, what are the kids? But no, those are some of the best, finest kids we have in those programs. But as you stated, right, those instructors, because our retired or transition military personnel, both NCOs and overall officers, doing an outstanding job when it comes to just taking
And
care
it's
of those young men and women.
and it's unbelievable because they could go out to the industry and make 10 times what but
Way
they
better.
choose to continue to serve and in a way sacrifice their wealth to just be there. And they make and you're right, junior ROTC kids, higher graduation rates,
Hmm.
higher grades, higher
Yes.
success, higher post high school
High school.
educations. Insane,
Because of
insane.
the structure they have in place. That is unique. I like to talk about your experience as as a CNI commission officer, but most important at denominator level, because
Yeah.
now you interact with like you said, right, general officers, some of the finest we have on this earth. Yes, man, those general officers, some of the best guys and girls. How was it for you? You know, now you left battalion and brigade. Now you have to be you think very strategically now, right? You know,
Right,
at the
right, right.
operation, now at the direct organization level, now you have to think bigger things now because I've seen some CSM struggle, you know,
Yeah,
because they're still worried about how the grass being cut, who's not doing what, compared
yeah.
to looking at the vision for the whole organization, working alongside that counterpart, that general officer. How did you make that switch, and what prepared you for it, if any?
I think, like I said, guys like Rick Merritt, to a certain extent, even staying in touch with him, Grippy, and those folks really helped me doing that. But sometimes I look back and I say, man, you are one lucky bastard. I swear to
Yeah,
God. My first boss that hired me was a guy named John Orick, which, by the way, we're still friends to this day. Like we talk at least once a month, catch up with each other. He stayed at my house. I've stayed at his house. This is a general officer. So you never, you look back as like, I would never do that. But yeah, so great friends with him. And he really helped me make that transition. I remember, so I owned the airborne test board. So I owned the airborne special operations test director at Fort Bragg, and I was getting amped up about something. And I went to him and I was like all amped up. We took action on it. It was I don't want to go into detail, but it was not good. But I remember him telling me something that, how you get that, like it's a 30-second moment, but it resonates for the rest of your time in the positions. That was that time. But he looked at me and he said, he looks, Mario, just be cognizant that if you amp me up, you tell me this is important, all stars are coming down, man.
yeah,
Like, I'm a general and I'm gonna, so he said, make sure, because he looked at me, he goes, you're very amped up on this thing, so you're right. I said, but it resonates, like, so from that moment on, every time I would sit with the boss, I had to bring myself back and say, breathe for a second, reanalyze, refocus on the problem set. And is this problem set that needs to be elevated to his
yeah.
level?
To his level,
Or
yeah.
is it something? And the other lesson I learned a little bit, and it wasn't in that case, but some other ones was, hey, sometimes don't go running to the. So there's a lot of nominative leaders that, at the nominative level, sergeant major, NCO, that go running to the general. And I ended up almost doing the opposite. So when something happened, I protected the command from the general to a certain extent, because I went to the subordinate commands and say, hey, here's what's happening in your formation. Fix it. And once you fix it, as soon as you fix, I'll give you the opportunity to fix it. This is something I have to talk to the boss about, but you got this amount of time. After that, you're on your own. So I need to go to the boss and say, this happened, and the commander and the command sergeant major at that level fixed it. That was, there was some cases where I went to the commander and say, yeah, we got a problem.
Yeah, them guys are off the
But
reservation over here.
so it's like, and then the other thing that I have to say, and this is unfortunate, is you gotta one, stay humble about your position. My driver, my license, my plate has my rank, and I stay at the best. And when I go to I was the guy. I went to GRTC. Yeah, they gave me the hotel room, but most of the time I'm out walking from the beginning to end.
The sticks links. Yeah.
Yeah, no, then there's the guys that come back to their hotel room every night, and as soon as the sun goes down, solar powered individual. So it's this. What I'm trying to say is this: you're doing the job not for yourself. You're doing the job, and you were given this amazing privilege to be there for the soldiers and the commands. And don't have hubris about you. It's not about the position or your status. Unfortunately, there's a lot of folks that do this because they love the status of it.
No, you're
Real
right.
quick.
Because, I mean, as you can see, not trying to cut you off, as you can
Yeah,
see,
yeah,
once you transition, the position is temporary.
that's it. No one cares. No one cares.
Nobody cares. They just don't get it. Nobody cares. It's all about the soldiers. It's all about the command. You are there to make the organization the best where you can overall transition out.
Real quick story. I got really ticked off because I had this thing that first sergeants assign rooms. I made a division policy that first sergeants assign room to soldiers because that way the soldier's going to get a clean room, is going to go to right. So anyway, and I would get these reports. I had a mechanism where I would know if things were wrong, and I got a call from them saying that this female sergeant got a room so bad that she decided to sleep in her car because the room was that bad. And I'm like, no, 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 no.
It can't be true.
I mean, I was
Yeah.
saying all kinds like, yeah, wow. I'm sorry that you're not at the Four Seasons, that our rooms are more like Motel 6, which is still pretty clean and we keep the lights on. So I went down there and I looked at the room and I'm like, oh my God,
Mm,
it was horrible. And then
yeah.
I have the first sergeant there, have the commander there, battalion commander and brigade commander came running later, of course, because they hear like,
Damage
balance
control.
7
Yeah.
is going off crazy.
Yeah.
I have the soldier there and I look at her and I said, did you tell your mom about this? And she goes, yeah, I did. She's kind of worried. I said, do you mind calling your mom right now and putting her on speaker? Because I would like to apologize.
Apologize. Yeah.
And so they call. There's a reason I'm telling you this. They call, answered the phone. And I said, "Hey, I'm Sergeant Major Terenas. I'm the division sergeant major." And right off the back, she goes, "What's that?" It was a beautiful moment in transition. It was a beautiful moment in transition. Because I said, "Yeah, when you get out, no one knows or gives two damns about you. All this pomp, all these folks that bend over backwards to do things for you. Like, don't let that go to your
Yeah.
head, man." I
Yeah.
also fired the first sergeant, by the way.
Man, yeah, that is unsatisfactory. You can't put
But
soldiers
you know
in
why
a
I
room like that.
fired him? It's a great leadership lesson. I turned to him. I said, "First sergeant, how does this happen?" And all I wanted to hear is, "I screwed up."
Yeah. Take
I
responsibility.
No, he goes, "Well," he starts giving me excuses, and I was like, I said,
Yeah.
"Hey, you don't
Nice
have
knowing
it."
you. Yeah.
Thank God he didn't have that thing sewn on. I ripped it off. That would have been hard. Had to pull it
But
off.
no, we got to take care of the soldiers, though. We have to, because, we have those, you have to take care of soldiers like they are your own children. Just imagine if that was your kid, how would you feel he or she going to organization? Because it tells a lot about organization, really.
Yeah.
You said some things that kind of stimulate just another question here about the relationship piece between you and those commanders. I keep telling folks, when you transition, the friends you made in the military, the friends goes along with you.
Yeah.
The folks who you pissed off and because you think you all that, because you think you the man or woman, whatever the case may be, life going to change pretty quick. So how was that relationship for you, transitioning and while serving?
I tell you, especially at the nominative level. So altogether, I had four commanders. I can't tell you that all of it was beautiful pink unicorns and butterflies, and we
Yeah,
were
of
like
course. I
best
mean, it's
friends.
command. It's
No,
command.
it's
Yeah.
command, and we disagreed, but we all stayed right. And I think I have relationships with two of my commanders that are rock solid. I mean, like I went to training down in San Antonio and had dinner with one of our commanders and his wife, and my wife was there with me, and it's that kind of relationship. And I tell you, for transition purposes too, I know that I can call those individuals at any given time, and they're going to give me advice, and they're going to, and heck, they might even point me in the right place for applying for opportunities and all that. And even with the folks that I didn't get along with that great, we still stay in
Respectful.
contact. It's respectful. Make sure that you have that relationship with them. So for me, I was lucky. I was surrounded by amazing folks. The one thing I was going to tell you, but at that also the subordinate commanders. Look, and this is something that I have to talk to folks a lot about as they come up in the military. So, division commander, division sergeant major. You have six brigade commanders. You have six brigade sergeant and then on and down battalion, right?
Yeah.
One of my brigade sergeant majors when I was in 10th Mountain Division is now my trainer.
Mm.
He's my trainer. I joke with him that he calls me junior all the time. But can you imagine if you were a toxic,
Yeah.
disrespectful, which I know some out there, and now you're going to employment in one of your guys,
Yeah.
and once you leave, that rank's gone.
It's
And
gone.
the
Yeah.
same thing goes, like a lot of us transition, we stay in the military community, and we have jobs that are related to defense, to this, and we in let me tell you, there's relationships. That Rolodex is extremely important. Your brigade commanders, your battalion commanders, one of my brigade sergeant majors now is the force comm sergeant major. He was one of our, and I don't like saying mine. One of our brigade sergeant majors, 10th Mountain Division, is now the force comm sergeant major. The other one's about to take the 101st. Brigade commander, they're GOs. Like 5 or 6 of these folks that were with me are GOs now. You burn those bridges, you act like an idiot, and you don't, again, I think we talked a little bit about it. Protect your junior commanders from your boss a little bit.
Yes.
Allow them to succeed, and also be the interpreter, because we have commanders that will, like, here's what I want you to do, and it's a
Yeah.
7-page thing, and sometimes you don't even know what they want to do. But be that interpreter, because you're there with that individual to say, hey, here's what her or his intent
That's what the
are.
commander is talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like be the protector and translate a little bit, you
So that
know?
makes sense though, because I mean, you as that CNI commissioned officer, you need to understand your boss in terms of what
Yeah,
direction he or
absolutely.
she is going, and then that will work really if you guys have a good working relationship because you spend more time with him or her. If he or
Yeah,
she come up with new policy, you know exactly what he or she, what direction. And you're right, you have to be the guy or girl who interprets that to the formation in terms of those brigade or division CSM. And a question I want to ask you here is how did you or how would you recommend handling disagreement, right? Because he or she is the
yeah.
commander
That's a great
because
that
because it happened closed door in the office. We're gonna have that one-on-one
yeah,
conversation
yeah.
because that trust and respect is there. So I want you to allow me the flexibility and the opportunity to give
Well,
you my honest opinion.
I get so one of the advices I always give all the sergeant majors when I talk to them is, in especially some I didn't have to say this to, some I did, quite a lot I did, is you have zero command authority. In my
Sure.
opinion, that's the funny thing. I used to say this and it would PO everybody. I'd say that the term command sergeant major to me is a flawed term, because I don't command anything. I have authority that is delegated to me from my commander. And unless the order is illegal, immoral, or unethical,
Unethical. Yeah.
that's it. So the way I would, the advice or the way I handled those disagreements was absolute, unequivocal, candid discussions behind closed doors. And this is, everybody says this, absolutely. But once that door opened, again, if it wasn't, now I've had times where I went to the commander and said, what you are about to do is not legal, not,
It's not in compliance with written
it's
policy. Yeah.
immoral, not what it's not in compliance or in line with the Army values, and you either stop or I'm gonna make it stop by just, blabbing in a lack of terms. And to their testament, none of them ever, they were like, understand. But if it's not illegal, immoral, or unethical, you come out and their order becomes so. There are three ways to obey an order, right? There's the resist. You get an order, you resist, which is tantamount to disobedience. So that's number one, resistance. There's will comply, right? Will comply, in my opinion, is the hey, the boss said we need to do this. I think he's full of crap, but he
Yeah.
said to do it, so let's
Let's do
just
it
do it.
anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's Wilco. That again, not a way to obey an order. And then the last and only way to obey an order is to commit. When that order comes to you, you commit as if you are giving that order. That I got told this a long time ago. I'd love to take credit for it. I can't, but I that's the way I said. You know what? Commit, man, and take the order. And I remember I had a really crappy boss at NTC after Paul Garcia, and I did not see eye to eye with that. But he didn't do illegal, immoral, unethical stuff. But I just knew it. In the one that you look at moments, you say, I feel proud of this moment, and it's weird that I feel proud of this moment. I remember he left. New commander came on board, whatever, and you were having that little burnout in the desert with your NCOs, and they started talking about the old guy, and I said, yeah, that dude was something. Like I couldn't stand him, and there was this complete silence. They all looked at me, and they're like, "We we thought you loved the guy." I said, "Yeah, yeah."
Yeah.
Well, keep thinking, pal. I mean, that I said that to me, that was a proud moment for me. That I said, "All right, you did the right thing." The guy's an idiot, but but
You follow
take his
orders. That is
orders,
not. Yeah, it was not like you
commit,
said unethical. Yeah.
commit,
Yeah.
commit. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a very huge respect for those CN officers, and for my limited time, what I observe is most CN officers, not most, I mean, all of them have a very huge respect and appreciation for that CNI commission officer. They listens, they listen and they love
Absolutely.
your feedback, your input, provided you are giving him or
Yeah.
her relevant advice and counsel, whatever the case may be, because once he or she loves confidence in you or your ability to give him that advice, you are kind of productive, right? You just remove yourself
Yeah. Yeah.
out
Absolutely.
it creates a huge problem. So the next question here is how you believe your experience and the things you learned within the military now as you transition had prepare you for the civilian sector, because you've been exposed to different level of command, different level of responsibility. Did that help you or how you see yourself?
So what I learned, especially after in AUSA, it was still very much a military sort of format, and I'm teaching military, so it's a little bit different there. But as I transitioned, I did have a completely outside of the military job. What I learned and what prepared me is I've seen this people on the outside, and it sounds like the people, those
They're on a
folks out
different
there,
planet, right?
the folks outside the reservation, which is not, but which I am now.
Outside of the five, the outside of the five.
Civilian organizations they don't adjust to adversity very well. So when things go bad or wrong, there tends to be like this really like they it some almost go into a panic mode,
Yeah,
and then no one speaks out either. It's like this, I call it the silent panic. Like, the boss is mad, things are going, and everybody's like, who's gonna get fired? That sucks. It's like the hyena
yeah.
and the zebras, they're like, the zebras are watching the lion is like, yeah, it sucks to you. You're gonna get eaten,
You're gonna eat today. Yeah.
So what the military prepared me for was to really be able to take like the worst of situations and quickly devise perform MDMP, think about the problem, analyze it, and quickly say, let's go do it. Like, this is where we need to go. And by the way, the civilian world does not react to that very well, in a way, sometimes, because they're like, whoa, Tiger, let's talk about this for a
Yeah,
month, then we'll figure it out. No, where
yeah,
we are like, hey, let's take action. It also helped what I found. So I work for a company. I won't say the name and all this other stuff just because,
yeah.
they're there. But I was a director of operations, had a ton of kids doing stuff out there. And when I arrived there, they didn't have standards, and they were supposed to be in a uniform and all that, but they were so loose, and everybody's like, it's not, we can't say this stuff to these kids. And what I learned was the Army prepared me for that, which was all I saw was a bunch of kids that just came out of basic that are going wild on their first freedom, and I'm going to grab them. And it helped me to be able to communicate to them and get them on my team, if that makes sense, right? I'm sorry if there's like some kind of
No,
ambulance or
you're
something.
fine. You're fine.
Yeah.
You're
But
fine.
it helped me really get them to it was funny. I had like 5 or 6 foremans under me, and one day they cornered me, and they're like, we've never had anybody like you that cares. That's the other thing. No one a lot of civilian, they won't call you to ask you how you're doing if
Yeah.
something traumatic happened. Like, I called the kid and said, congratulations, because he got something, and it was his birthday. I called him for his birthday and congratulated him on some achievement, and he's like, I've been in the company for 10 years, no one's ever done this. He's like baffled, because when I called, he's like, what's wrong, what did I do? I was
I
like,
do.
no,
Yeah.
it's your birthday, man. He's like, happy birthday. And he goes, how? No one's done this. And so those are all these things that we take for granted of what we do in the military, that in the civilian world, it really doesn't happen. And then at the strategic level, here, how we do this a lot where we say, here's our state right now, here's where we want to
There we
go,
go.
here's our lines of efforts, here's the mission statement, and here's how we're going to get at it.
Get there.
I did that. It was revolutionary. They're like, and then I said, really? Let me talk to you about mission command.
No, don't
We need to
confuse them,
have
please.
trust, and we need to have a shared vision. Understand? They're blown by it.
Yeah.
In the military, all those things that to me are just natural. It helped me navigate that world, and then some. And then now in my current position, of course, I'm back sort of in the military community and helping the military community out. So it's I'm fully unprepared. And by the way, I also worked for the Department of Corrections for Pennsylvania as a curriculum development manager and that sort of thing. And that was I
It's an eye-opening position. That's
was
amazing. What advice would you give a CN officer, a CN non-commissioned officer considering transition? I know you had a phenomenal transition. I heard your
yeah.
transition was great. Everything worked pretty well as you planned it. You know,
I was thinking I sort of knew you were going to ask me this, and I was thinking about that. And I think the big advice is they all know the lessons. They all know, prepare yourself ahead of time, all these other things. But here's the one thing that you never, so you always talk about, the soldier transition, the soldier transition, the soldier transitioning. You know who's also transitioning? The
family.
spouse,
Yeah.
the family. And we don't talk about that a lot, but man, it's a significant emotion, especially for the very senior. I know already of about 3 to 4 of peers that transition out, and then within a year they're divorced,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And
Yeah.
a lot of them too.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that's because you went from a very regimented life. Here's the story. So I'm transitioning. I got the job at AUSA in DC before I left. And I'm like, well, we're not going to live in DC. We're going to buy a house. Bought my first home. Never had a home. Never bought a home. And I told my wife, I said, where you want to live? And she's like, let me look. I'll give you an answer here in a while. So she came back an hour later and she said, Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I said, Lancaster, Pennsylvania?
What's
They
out
have
there?
nothing to do with it. I mean, what? She goes, halfway between our best friends in Jersey and your work. Yeah, you're going to spend, a couple of nights a week in DC. I said, and I Googled it and I really liked it.
That's amazing. She
The
was.
third time I came was to buy a home. But the first night we came in here, like nominative sergeant major, senior NC, I had not lived off post since 2011.
Hey,
So when I got here, I was like, we need law. I'm going to go get 3 Malinois. So they're going to rob us
it's
tonight
gonna
for
be. It's gonna be
sure.
like
I have, oh my
Fort
God,
Knox over
I'm in
here,
the,
right? It's gonna
there's,
be Fort
there's no
Knox.
gate. There's no gate, man. Oh my God, there's bad people everywhere. So, but the advice I would have is, definitely understand, prepare. I know you do. I know you understand, but the emotional impact that goes into your family's movement, that's one of them. And then I always talk about the triangle: money, location, and then a dream job. I'll tell you one advice, and a lot of folks might dispute this and whatever they are. You had your dream job. I had my dream job for 32 years. I chose, honestly, independence at a certain age. So have a goal. They all did. But I said at the age of 65 to 67, I'm done. I'm not doing anything. And I'm going to be making the same thing I'm making now at the current lifestyle. So that means that you also, yeah, I've seen a lot of my peers, man, that get out, start making really good money. And you know what they do? Buy the big car, buy the big house. No, I didn't. I bought my first new car ever, ever. All the new cars we ever had was for my wife and kids. I bought
Yeah.
it for her. But I always tell them, like, don't, like, when you get there, look at the long run. A couple other quick advices I have too. 30 days of vacation were a thing of the past, dude. Like, you'll be lucky to get it. If you get a job that gives you 14 days, which by the way is about 3 weeks a year, you're golden, man.
Mm-hmm.
So really looking at the packages and what you get and not get. That was those are kind of that's the small stuff. But really the biggest advice for me, man, is like, honestly, like, by the time about that 6 month mark from where you're transitioning, that's when you're going to start looking for a job. About 6 months out. 6 months, you might play it risky, 90, and that's from the time you go on transition leave. So 6 months before transition leave, I went full on about going. I have really one last, because I can go forever, but one last, especially for the senior officers, non-commissioned officers. So I'm a division sergeant major, nominative sergeant majors, and you can stay on till your last day in the Army doing interviews. And there's a lot of guys that cling on to that
Yeah.
whole.
Don't want to let it go.
I told my wife 1 May of 22. So it's like, I know I'm going to I know I'm out of division by July. So I said 1 May is my cutoff date. At 1 May, I will call nominative branch and say, I'm out. I'm not doing any more interviews. And I had interviews, and they're like, hey, hold on, because this is coming open. You can do that. But at 1 May, true to my word, I said, I'm out. I'm out. And it's scary. It's a
Yeah.
scary, scary phone call. But you have to say, hey, this is the cutoff. Don't cling on to hope. If you're not getting it by then, it's because your time has passed. The star's not going to magically show up.
Show up.
The wreath no, you're not going to be SMA, man. Sorry, I know was the plan, but it's not going to happen.
You're gonna hurt a
No,
lot of folks' feelings out there. You know, a lot of guys and
no,
girls
I
hold on
do
to it. You know.
because I tell you, the problem is, it's funny. I look back now and I think I probably shouldn't have gone so long. I'm very proud. I'm extremely proud that I went that long. But I look now, I could be retired at 60 and be really, really well off financially. But I'm going to have to go to 65, 67 to be in that really good position, and enjoy life with that. And I always have one last thing. My wife says it's killing. Um, get the job. I went for the job to be financially secure, but at the same time, find that balance too, where, hey, me and my wife are going to Europe twice a year.
It's good.
We're dating again, because we missed out. Probably the last 10 years in the Army was like a punch in the face. It was like go, 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 go. So find that job that you can spend some really good time with your wife. I got the dream job. She can travel with me. So it's awesome, you know. So we go together to things, and yeah,
That's
yeah.
amazing. You got to put the family first, right? They play a huge role. They've been sacrificing their entire life through your
And
service.
do PT. Do
Yeah,
PT, man.
you have to stay active. You have to. I really appreciate you, CSM. Thanks again for
Yeah,
taking the time. I'm gonna have to
absolutely.
bring it back on here. We got so much to talk about. We didn't
I know.
crack to that and candidly
Yeah,
about
please do.
bring it
Anytime.
back on here. Yeah, I appreciate you as we close out here. As OCSM myself, do you have any last closing comment? I gotta.
And I'll make it very short. Last classic, be extremely proud of your time in the military. Be
Yeah,
extremely proud of the positions and the things you've held and done. But don't make it your defining moment in life. Because honestly, it isn't I again very proud, best thing I've ever done with my life. It's not my defining. I have an entire new defining moment ahead of me. A lot of guys forget that. A lot of gals forget that. And then they go into this slump of what happened before and what could did not. No, man. Like that was awesome. I'm good now. Now it's time to be with your family. It's time to like be a human being again, you know? We've given everything to everybody else. It's time to give it to yourself and to your family. So really that would be my comments.
I appreciate you, brother. Thanks a lot again. I we try to get you back on here soon.